Excel has some great validation tools. Say you want to always enter a phone number here and you want to make sure that it's correctly formatted, etc. However, if you do that with data validation, you will always get settings after the fact. Once you have entered that entry, it will check things. It's kind of late, and besides, you cannot do any formatting. So I would like to do a little more. I would like to let the user just type the number that is there and nothing else, and the rest we will do by VBA. So we are going to VBA, and we are going to use a form that allows you to edit that text while you are typing, not after you have typed, but while you are typing. And we do that by make sure that we have a user form in this thing. Here is the user form. You can always insert a user form, and I'm just going to keep the name Userform 1. If you want to do more, then you go to the properties window and you change the name of the user form, etc., etc., etc. I'm closing this one. If you ever close that one, then you are very limited in your options. So I'm going back to the Project Explorer and I make sure that I have a user form there, and when I open it, I get a toolbox, and that's how I got this little text box here. I just go to the AB button and draw a text box here. I left the name text box 1, but you can again rename it with the properties window. If you want to go to the code behind this thing, you make sure that you have these two options, view code and view object. So I go to view code, and this is what we have in there. First, I make sure that when the user form activates, how did I get that subroutine? You go to this drop-down box, make sure you go to user form. There is also a text box 1, that's all there is on that user form. Click on user form, and then make sure you have the event activated. Then I'm going to put a caption on the user form. So let me show you what is going to happen when we do things. At the moment I enter a new record and I get into this cell, I get that user form, and the caption says enter the phone number, and all I have to do is type the number 6, notice that it puts a parenthesis there, 1 7 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, or whatever the number is, and when you are done you enter and it puts that number in there, and it checked things. It not only did it format things, it made sure that you have no numbers missing and that you don't have too many numbers. So here is the user form, no caption yet, and there is the text box. We go to the code window and we say to the user form, you either call it userform1.caption or me.caption. Me stands for the object that this code is in, which is the user form. Enter the phone number. Then we do a user form query close. That is going to make sure that you cannot close that box by clicking on the X in the right top corner of the form, because we want to do things in the meantime. So again, you do that by choosing user form here and then query close there. And there we are going to say if the close mode, where does this come from? That is one of the arguments in the query close event. If the close mode equals VB form control menu, then set cancel, which is another argument in that event or subroutine, set it to true. That means you cannot really close the form. Then we do a Userform Terminate that says when we are done with the form, we put whatever is in text box 1 in the active cell where we had clicked before. Then we unload the user form 1, or you could say unload me. So how come that user form kicked in? We did that in this case sheet 1. We put in there a subroutine, or actually an event, that is based on the worksheet that we are in, and the selection change event. That means when someone moves to another cell, this event kicks in. In my case, I'm saying if the column number is not 3, because we happen to be in column 3, then exit the sub. If the active cell is not empty, then exit the sub. And then show Userform 1 in a VB modal mode. That means you cannot click on the sheet until you are done with that form. So what happens in that form? We are going back to Userform. You get automatically, when you go back there, you get automatically the form view, but we want a code view. We had done all of this already. Now we are going to do the object text box 1 key press event. Key press is every key that has an ASCII number. So we declare 2 variables, and then we put whatever was the ASCII key that the user had used. We captured the character of that key and store that in as character. Then we reset the ASCII key to 0, otherwise it's going to automatically add that number, and we don't want to add that number automatically. We are going to regulate that in the rest of this subroutine. Then we store in as text what happens to be the value in text box 1, and then we are going to select the case as character. And we are going to say case 0 to 9. Remember, as character was the character of the ASCII key. Select another case, so we have a select inside a select. The length of as text. If the length is 0, then we are going to say as text equals an open parenthesis, literally, space, ampersand, space, and then the character that we had captured in the key press event. If the case is free, then we take what is already in as text, add the character that was typed, and then a closing parenthesis and a dash. Case 8, we just add space. Case 14, we give them a message box, the number is complete, and we call the Userform Terminate event, that is this guy, that puts the value in the active cell and unloads the form. In all other cases, we just add that character to as text. That was the case for the length. Then the other select statement ends here. In all other cases, we say you can only type numbers. See how cool this is? You really check what the user is typing while they are typing and not after the fact. And then finally we put in the text box 1 as text. Then how can the user close that form? Not by clicking on the X in the right top corner of the form. So we are going to use the return key that tells the form that we are done. So that is done with a key up event. You cannot do that with a key press event, for that has only the ASCII key characters. But the key up event can also find out whether you did return keys and delete keys and all that kind of stuff. If the key code, where does key code come from? That is an argument of the key up event, equals VB key return, then we are going to check whether the length of the text box is correct. If it's not 14, then we exit the sub, so the user cannot really get out of the form. Maybe you want also a message box, the number is not complete yet or is too complete. Then we put the value in the active cell, we unload Userform 1 or me, and end if. So we have a perfectly working form now. Again, the only other thing we need is the selection change event for that specific worksheet. Let's test it. So each time I go to an existing number already, it does not do anything. If I go to the wrong column, an empty cell doesn't do anything, but at the moment I hit this, that form kicks in. So I'm going to type my number. And let's say I make a mistake. I forget one. I cannot click on the X, as you know, but I can enter. But it doesn't do anything unless I have put a message box there that says if you don't type the right number, the correct number of numbers, we are in trouble. So if I type another one, if I type too many, it says the number is complete and it ignored that last number. Again, I cannot close this one here, but I can type any number. At the moment I enter, it will put that number in there. What is so cool about this, that it does everything while you are typing and not after you type. And besides, the validation tool does not let you do any formatting in the number. So then the user has to type the open and closing parentheses, and you could get a very messy spreadsheet. VBA can do much more than Excel can do on its own. And you want to know what VBA can do. So I developed this CD-ROM that handles all these issues in more than 1500 slides that are interactive besides. Maybe you think that the CD-ROM is expensive, but it isn't really. For once you have bought this and you load it onto your machine, you can give that CD-ROM to someone else in your department or your colleagues, and they can benefit from it also and give you the CD-ROM back. You can find it at genesispc.com.